Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Tracy E Gilchrist. We're continuing our award season coverage today by taking a closer look at this year's Oscar nominations. There were a few wins for diversity and inclusion, but still much room for improvement. Let's revisit my conversation with Out Magazine editor-in-chief Daniel Reynolds about this year's nominations. I wonder, did you want to talk about, Best Actor category? That's another one. Completely straight and white. And this seems to happen quite often where the Academy, in my opinion, pushes people of color nominations to the supporting acting categories very often. And we get this, especially Best Actor, is almost always white and straight. And I wonder if you would comment on that.
Well, I think this speaks to the glass closet, right? I mean, there's a whole, even in 2023, with as progressive as Hollywood believes it to be, there are still significant hurdles for LGBTQ actors. Hollywood wants to cast the biggest names in its production, and those names tend to be straight. And so we end up in a vicious cycle where even queer roles, right, something like The Whale and Brendan Fraser, will go to a bigger name like Brendan Fraser versus, say, pick an out actor.
Yeah,
Right?
Jeremy Pope in The Inspection, who was not nominated, and neither was the film by Elegance Bratton.
Yes, and it was a beautiful film and a beautiful performance. It was amazing that, he did get the Golden Globe nomination. I was doubtful that he would receive the Oscar nomination just because I feel like Hollywood tends to favor, especially in the male acting category, older actors, more established, usually over 40. I will say in this category, it was nice to see a lot of new names. I think this is the first time in like decades that these are all first time Oscar nominees, which is refreshing. So I think we're seeing a shift outside of the pool of usual suspects, right?
That is fascinating. And I think that's interesting that you bring that up because for decades, the Best Actress category was all women under 40 for the most part, or the winners were all under 40 for years and years. I think maybe Frances McDormand broke that, or can't remember who the first one was to break that seal, but we seem to have gotten away from that. Thank goodness.
Yes. And yeah, how interesting, right? What, that they favor men over 40 and women under 40.
Imagine that. I,
Not surprising at all, but yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about one of my favorite films that was nominated. It's in the documentary category. All the Beauty and the Bloodshed is an incredible film that features the artist Nan Golden, who's queer and who became addicted to OxyContin and goes after the Sackler family in a way who run the pharmaceutical company Purdue Pharma. And the way that she does this is protests at museums to get their names removed from museum wings, which is really fascinating. And then the film goes back to the beginning of her career in the 60s and the 70s. And there's a beautiful whole moment or several moments where she's had curated the first exhibition of AIDS art in the 80s, and the NEA came for her, etc. So this movie is an incredible movie, and I hope people go see it. And I wonder if you've seen this and your thoughts about it, if you have.
So I haven't seen the film, but
Yeah.
I will say that it has been on my list for some time now. And I think this Oscar nomination, of course, I'm going to see it. And I encourage others to as well, because I have read about it. And like you're saying, it is a fascinating document, right, of all of that history. So,
Yeah. I think a couple others we could touch on are, let's see, Close was nominated in the Best International Feature category. And that's a film I haven't seen. I'm wondering if you've seen it. That's by Lucas Dunk.
I haven't. And also on that same list, Oscars list I was referencing with Stephanie, Lucas is listed as an out director as well. And, this Lucas is a semi-controversial figure within the LGBTQ community. He infamously directed Girl a few years
Girl.
ago, which also received critical acclaim, which was about a transgender ballerina, but he cast a cisgender actress.
Right.
And this goes back to the LGBT casting debate, right? About,
Yes.
who gets to play LGBTQ roles, and, who is that authority.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was, from what I've heard of the film, it's a coming of age story of two 13-year-old boys
Mhm.
whose friendship is threatened by homophobia at their school. So it is fantastic to see the Academy recognizing that storyline.
Yes, wonderful. I did want to mention another film of mine that was nominated for Best Picture, which is one of my favorites. I love this director,
I
Triangle
think I know who you're going to
Triangle of
talk.
Sadness, which, is kind of queer in its, I would say, in its excoriation of masculinity, of traditional masculinity, and Dolly De Leon plays this
Hmm.
character who was a cleaning woman on this luxury yacht who, when the yacht is blown up and they end up on an island, she is in charge. And there's a real shift of power there that is exciting. And I wonder if you would comment on this film as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually wanted to lead with this film because it when I think of my favorite films of last year,
Yeah.
Triangle of Sadness, and Tar
Mhm.
top that list, for very different reasons. But
Yeah.
Triangle of Sadness has a very camp sensibility. There's literally like a 10-minute plus scene of all of like the 1% on this boat, having a dinner that turns into just a vomit fest, that is unlike anything I've ever seen in cinema, and it's just a riot. But
Mhm.
as you were saying, like Dolly De Leon in the last act as the woman that upends the patriarchy that had been established prior on the boat,
Mhm.
is one of the best performances I think I've ever seen. And it was a little bit of a disappointment. I was really rooting for her to get the Oscar nomination.
Yes, I
Um,
was as well.
and of
Yeah.
course, Harris Dickinson is so handsome. He first came to my attention through Beach Rats, which was
Oh, right,
a
right.
gay film that came
Uh-huh.
out a couple of years ago.
By Eliza Hittman.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
played a closeted a closeted teen in Staten Island. That was just, I mean, it was excellent. So, if you want to do further reading, you like Harris Dickinson and Triangle of Sadness, I would pair those together too. But yeah, great
Fantastic, and
film.
I should say that's by Ruben Östlund, who directed one of my all-time favorite films, Force Majeure. So excited to see that there. I think, before we go, we should discuss some snubs. I know that Out is working on a list of them, and, some of the big ones are, well, I think Viola Davis, but I know that Out is working on a list of queer snubs, and one of them is Janelle Monáe for, Knives Out, or sorry, Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery. And I wonder if you would talk a little bit about some of the snubs.
Yeah, I mean, Janelle Monáe was a big one. I
Yeah.
think there was a lot of buzz around her. And that movie is just delicious. I don't want to spoil it, but she plays two different characters in
She's
that
so good in
movie.
that. Mhm.
And the turn of it is just so brilliant. She's one of my favorite artists out there. I always look forward to her music. The next thing she's coming up to in acting. And so, yeah, so we're very sad Janelle didn't make the list.
Mhm.
We mentioned before, but The Inspection
Right.
was another film that we would have loved to have seen highlighted. This is Elegance Breton's semi-autobiographical story about his experience in the Marines, and specifically
Mm.
training to be a Marine, and the homophobia and hurdles he encountered there as a man of color. And also for Jeremy Pope, who was my first cover story without was with Jeremy.
I
Um,
remember.
yeah, and
Mhm.
so he's always held a special place in my heart, after he was one of the breakout stars of Hollywood, Ryan Murphy's Netflix show last year. But listen, even the fact that we're having this conversation, that
Mhm.
he's a snub, I mean,
Right,
he's
right.
all,
No, that's
he's so
progress.
young.
Yeah.
Doesn't he already have a Tony or Tony nomination? So
Probably. He's so incredibly talented. Thank you to Daniel for stopping by. I always enjoy our talks. Thank you for joining me on this Advocate Today. For more content and coverage like this, open the Advocate channel wherever you stream. I'm Tracy E Gilchrist. I'll see you next time.